Hey, it's Dominic.
G'day from Australia.
No kidding. How are you down there?
I'm in Melbourne and it's middle of summer or beginning of summer and it's beautiful and raining outside. So,
Oh, is that what your summer brings, is beautiful rain?
no, Melbourne is known to be the city of four seasons. And we
Ah,
get four seasons every day.
well, I love Australia. Australia is a very entrepreneurial country. I've been there many times, done business there. I know you're a global guy. We're going to get into that in a second. And we've got just listeners all over the world, but I'm so happy to have you here. I'm a bit of a geek because you are one of the contributing authors to Scaling Up, which is the add-on book from Rockefeller Habits. And anybody who's listened to my podcast, even half a podcast once, will know that I'm a massive fan of this system.
And Dom, I get no royalties out of Scaling Up. I wrote the financial component of Scaling Up, but the whole concept that Vern Harnish has developed, the 4 decisions, to me is one of the great books that have ever been written. It works. I've seen it all over the world. And if your listeners are interested at all in scaling up their business, this is a must first read in their library.
Yeah, I think by definition, everybody listening to this podcast is interested in growth, that kind of growth. Plus, you've got a cool accent, so that's going to help.
Can you tell where my accent comes from?
Do you know what? You've got a little bit of a South African in there too, don't you?
Correct. I'm South African. I'm a South African chartered accountant, and I was brought over by a clothing company called Esprit about 55 years ago to live in this beautiful country.
Beautiful. I know. Yeah. I don't think I fit in any of Esprit's clothes, but I know the brand.
No, you're looking like a superb athlete, Don. Don't worry.
Yeah. Hey, Alan, let's back up a little bit, because people who are listening to this they're listening to the podcast. Maybe they're watching the video. Those people who are listening to the podcast are doing something else. They are on a flight. They're on a run. They're on a treadmill. They're walking their dog. They may not have heard of you. I know you because I'm a geek for this business strategic planning world that you and I are in. Can you give us some context as to who you are and how you come to be speaking to the global world of architectural woodworkers, cabinet makers, and anybody in the finished wood trades?
Fantastic. So, as I said, I trained as a chartered accountant in South Africa. And then I didn't see a political future. You know, we had apartheid in the country. I didn't believe in the political system, but the education in South Africa was beyond belief. South African chartered accountants were considered the best in the world. And I got offered this amazing job by Esprit, and I helped set up Esprit Footwear in Australia. So I'm trained as an accountant, but I was responsible for the design of the footwear, the retail stores in terms of this product category, and I loved it. And that was in my blood. My family had a very big fashion factory in South Africa. We used to manufacture Bally of Switzerland.
Oh,
the really upmarket ladies footwear brand. Well, we actually made ladies footwear. We had 1,000 people in the factory.
Wow.
And it was one of the biggest footwear factories in the country.
So you get manufacturing.
I get manufacturing, but I get even more how to manage the customer. So, okay. So anyway, I went to Australia. I worked at Esprit for a few years. And then I was invited to help the government look at the industry. You know, we had import duties, we had protection, we had quotas, and it was totally inefficient, Australia. And I spent many years going around and looking at textile, clothing, footwear companies who had to change. The world was changing. We had Asia, who were much more efficient than us, and people were surviving from protection. And I realized that business looked at numbers one way and the bank looked at numbers another way. And I said, how can we speak Spanish and the bank speak Portuguese? And I got together with another South African chartered accountant who had emigrated as well. And we said, let's develop a global standard by which people look at numbers.
Oh.
And every bank was really using either the Moody's or the S&P analysis tools. And we basically thought we could do something better. So we raised capital and we launched this global company. Many years later, our system today is used in about 500 of the global banks.
Wow.
Every bank in Australia, every credit analysis in this country is put through my tool. In the US and Canada, we got some of your key banks using it. And as I said, in the States and Canada, we're very prominent. And I sold the company about 6 or 7 years ago. And today, what do? I've got a new technology system called Cash Flow Story. And Cash Flow Story is aimed at one thing. Every person on your management team, the CEO, the marketing, the operational people, need to understand the financial story. And we've developed, and we've spent 20 years of our lives taking the complex and making it simple. And Cash Flow Story's got one goal. Every person in your company will understand and love the numbers and then determine what changes they can make to the way they run their business to scale up profit, cash, and value.
And there's the word again, scaling up, which is, I mean, I got introduced to this so many years ago when the Rockefeller Habits came out, the first book that Vern put out. And I'll have to admit, I'm not a cash-focused businessman. I'm more the marketing and sales operations side. The first time I read the Rockefeller Habits, I had to put it down. I didn't get it. I had to pick it up a second time and read it. And I remember reading it on the treadmill. If you see my copy of the Rockefeller Habits, it's absolutely falling apart because I've flipped back and forth and used it. It's got Post-it notes sticking all over. But what I came to learn there, that did actually change my life, because based on that book, I built a $120 million business. And then another business I took from 0 to just a little over 6. So I've seen this numbers thing, even though I'm not a numbers guy. It's that cash flow story you're talking about that goes through. It's the undercurrent of the whole thing. It's not hard.
And that's why Vern, who I've got the greatest respect for, heard me speaking at a conference, and he realized that his new Rockefeller Habits version 2, or scaling up, is missing a core component. Cash. Because you can have the greatest strategy, but if you don't have cash, it's academic. And Vern had searched the world for people who were in this space, who had really made the complex simple. And I was absolutely privileged that Vern chose my system and has been recommending our methodology globally.
I love it. Yeah, it's unbelievably simple because it boils down. And this is my, you and I haven't really talked about this before, but you just boil down to what the basics are and then focus on those simple basic numbers by applying the simple stuff. It's not complicated. It's just focus on the simple stuff.
Dom, so my biggest gripe in life is the accounting profession has made the numbers so complex, whether it's to protect the industry or whatever. I guarantee you, when I'm finished this podcast, your users or your listeners will say, wow, this is actually not complex at all. Well, and I'll get there. I will get there today.
Yeah, we will. So look, that's actually a good segue point. Today we're going to talk about profit. We're going to talk about cash, and you want to talk about valuation.
Yes.
And valuation, actually, can you do us a favor just really quickly? Tell us what valuation is, just really quick so our listeners understand it, because it's not perhaps a common language. And then I'll let you launch into this for us.
Okay, so valuation, I'm not talking about a detailed valuation. When I meet a company, the first thing I say to them is, let's do an indicative value of your company. And it's simply, what is your average earnings over the last few years, your EBITDA, earnings before interest and tax and depreciation,
Yep.
and multiply that by a multiple. So let's say, for example, your company's getting on average $1 million of earnings,
Right.
and your industry has a multiple of about 4 times. In other words, you can sell your company at a 4 times multiple. Your valuation is $4 million. And then I say to the owner, what would you like your valuation to be? How much would you walk for in 3 years' time?
Right.
And if the owner says, I want $20 million, we then use scaling up. What are the changes we need to make every year to achieve your valuation expectation?
Yes.
That's a journey. We got to take companies on a valuation journey.
I say the same thing. I just don't have your cool accent. So let me, without getting into the details of it, what are the little things we have to change to get to that X to 20 million? Are they complicated things, Alan, or are they just simple steps?
Seriously, is it difficult to implement? Obviously, there's nothing more. Change is quite hard sometimes, but I will give you a process that I can believe every person on this podcast can do.
Yeah, let's
seriously now. Let's make it simple. Let's spend the next X number of minutes or whatever and make the complex simple.
Perfect. Teach us, Grandmaster.
Okay, so step 1, I walk into a business and I say to the company, how are you performing? And the only thing the owner or the CEO ever discusses is their profit. They look at their revenue, they look at their margins, they look at their profitability, and a company would say to me, business is brilliant. Revenue is growing, margins are improving, profit is strong. And my first comment is, revenue is vanity, profit is sanity, cash is king, and if we've got female listeners, which hopefully we have, cash is queen as well.
I'm glad you said that.
So, Dom, the whole thing, a story of numbers is told over a number of chapters. And chapter 1 of a story is your profitability. And I assume that every person listening today understands profit. It's simple to read, it's simple to understand. But profit doesn't equal cash. I get phone calls every day from companies who say to me, I'm profitable, but I've got no money.
That's right. Where did it all go?
Where did it go? We got to create a process. So step 1, there are 4 chapters in a story. Chapter 1 is your profit. Equally important is chapter 2, what I call working capital. And there are only 3 components I look at. How quickly people pay you, your accounts receivable, how much inventory your company has got, or if you're in a service company, your work in progress, if you're in construction, for example, and how quickly or slowly you pay your suppliers, your accounts payable. So your working capital is 3 items, your receivables, your inventory, less your payables. Some companies have got a chapter 3. And chapter 3 is the rest of your balance sheet. I don't even worry about it when I'm teaching non-financial people because they will never understand complex terminologies which accountants use. So I'm focused on your profit and I'm focused equally on your working capital. The result of your business is cash flow. And again, accountants have complicated cash flow in a way that no one ever understands it. The biggest problem in business is what you don't know. And that's your blind spot. And cash flow is a blind spot in every business. I sit on the board of 15 companies around the world. I always say in my first opening, what was the cash flow? and everyone gives me a different answer because it's a blind spot. You know how easy cash flow is to calculate? So I'm going to ask you a question, Dom. You better not get it wrong.
All right. I can edit this later if we have to. Go ahead.
Edit this later. If you start the year with $10,000 in your bank,
yeah,
and you end the year with $1,000 in your bank, what's your cash flow? You started with 10, you end with 1. What's your cash flow?
-9.
Exactly. That's cash flow.
Yeah.
Cash flow is calculated as the movement in all your bank accounts.
It's like breathing. It's the money goes in and out like I need to breathe. And the better I breathe, the healthier I am.
So it's your cash in the bank, it's your short-term debt, and your long-term debt. So if a company's got no cash in the bank, for example, and their bank overdraft or their short-term debt grows from 1 million to 2 million over the last period, -1 million cash flow. So what I want to look at is a absolutely logical process. When I sit down with a business, step one, no one around the table should not understand cash. Financial controller, tell me the movements from this month compared to the previous month, the movement in our bank accounts.
You know, Alan, I couldn't agree more. You know, one of the most popular downloads I have just from my website is I've created, because of this same question, because you and I do the same thing, just in different parts of the world. I went and created something called the Finance and Forecast Meeting with the agenda and with the script, so that a business owner can download it and say, I've never run this before. Okay, here's the agenda to share with your team. Here's what we're going to talk about. And then the script for the owner to run the meeting, because you're right. They just, we can't talk about the business unless we talk about the numbers. And money is cold, but talking about money, that's hot. And so
you know what? In every one of my management meetings, and we've now got on our system, our cash flow story, we in 20,000 companies in 40 countries.
Love it.
And this is after 3 years. It's growing exponentially because everyone wants to understand the numbers, and people will start to love the numbers. Because if you think about it, and this is going to be the absolute heart of what I'm going to say today. So firstly, let's say it again. A story of numbers is told over 4 chapters. The only thing I want your users to understand is that your profitability management and your working capital efficiency are equally important. You cannot open a book and read chapter 1 and say what a great book it was. Your book is a 4-chapter story. To start off with, I want you guys running from today. Let's start to look at profit, working capital, and then you will understand the movement in your bank accounts called cash flow. What I also say to every company around the world is the bank knows your cash flow every day, so should you.
Yeah.
Cash flow is the movement in all your bank accounts. Now, do you want me to get to the heart straight away when your users are listening? They haven't turned this podcast off.
No.
So let's go straight to the jugular.
Do it.
We have spent 20 years of research trying to make an impossible concept easy. And what does every business try to do? Improve profit, cash, and value. That's what every business owner wants to achieve. So if you think about it, if you understand your profit and you understand your 3 measures in working capital, you will understand cash flow. So if I want to fix my profit, there are only 4 things I can do. I can change my prices. I can alter my volumes. I can manufacture more efficiently or purchase more efficiently or install, do my work better and control my overheads. So there are 4 drivers in your profit: price, volume, cost of goods, and overheads.
Love it.
There are 3 drivers in working capital: how quickly you collect, how much inventory you hold, or in a service type company, how much work have you done that hasn't been invoiced to the client? What's your work in progress? You've got to bill your client as frequently as you can. Bill them in advance if possible. And what are your terms with your suppliers? So in other words, the code of a company are the 7 levers of profit and working capital. And we've called it the power of one. The power of one should be sitting on every desk of every single management team. I'm saying in the world, people who want to scale their business. The only 7 things you can do to fix your company: price, volume, COGS, or in other words, efficiency of manufacturing, purchasing, or doing the work, and your overhead management. There are 3 drivers in working capital. So when I'm sitting with a company, I say to them, what do you want your profit and cash to look like next period, next year? How many 1%ers do we need to change? Because you're measuring profit as a 1% change, and you measure your working capital in days, how quickly people pay you, how much inventory you hold in days, how quickly or slowly you pay your suppliers. And as soon as you understand the power of one, you've got the code of your company.
You know, the strategies for those things, the actual what to do next is so simple. I mean, just as an example here on the accounts payable side, I'm going to talk out of both sides of my mouth, by the way, right now. Here it comes. When I'm working with business owners, and you probably hear this as well, we say, well, what's your accounts payable? You say, well, we've got a really strong person there. They're on it. They're smart. Right. But their job is to pay accounts. And so what they do is when a bill comes in, they want to do a good job and they want to pay it right away. The answer is yes, but let's define what right away means. What are the terms? How can we make that a little bit longer? Then on the other side, on the accounts receivable side, these are some of the actions that you and I work on a quarterly basis, really every week when we're meeting with a client, is what's your days cash outstanding? Because now you've become a bank. As soon as you've done work and you're not getting paid for it, you or I have become a bank. And I'm not in the business of banking. I know you were, Alan, so excuse us for a moment. But I'm not in the business of banking. I'm in the business of making great quality wood products. I want to get paid.
So, Dom, and this is the big problem I'm seeing right around the world. The financial controller is basically recording the numbers and reporting them in a way that's statutory. This is what statutory reporting looks like. Right. No one understands what they mean. People understand Chapter 1 profit, and that's the last part of the discussion they ever want to have, because Chapter 2 working capital is too hard, and cash flow is certainly a concept no one gets. So what I'm saying is your business is no different to a sporting event. There's a score. The score of your company is your cash. We've then got to teach the people who work for you, the players, how to play a better game.
Love it.
There are 7 levers your people can play. So what I do is I teach those people who work for you, because the marketing people or the sales people are making decisions every day around price and volume. So I'm going to ask a simple question. If you don't know this answer, you've got a blind spot in your business. What is the relationship in your company between price and volume? Put your prices up by 1%. What's the impact on cash? Sell 1% more. What does it do to cash and profit as well? And I can tell you now, no one knows that answer.
No, and let's dig into that for a moment, because I'll tell you the biggest restriction that I see with business owners over a price increase is not the client. It's the business owner.
So it's the salespeople. Right? They think they've got to give discounts.
Yeah. So taking a $9,000 kitchen job up by $900 you're not going to lose the customer if you're selling on value and you're doing the right things. But the resistance actually comes from the business owner before it comes from the client.
Exactly. But once you start to show your people how their decisions are impacting the business, people change. As I said to you, I'm getting emails daily from people around the world I've never met who's saying this is transformational. Every person in your company with every transaction needs to think about 7 levers.
Yeah.
So for example, if you meet a customer for the first time, this is my value proposition. We will give you the best product, the best service. All we're saying to you is these are our prices and you've got to respect our payment terms. No one wakes up in the morning saying, I'm not going to pay my supplier. It's the way you educate them. You've got to educate your people.
Mm-hmm.
So your salespeople have got to educate your customer about your rules.
The rules, systems, the way to do business. Yeah.
Those 7 levers, if you alter those 7 levers, you will find in your company that a 1% change will have a dramatic impact on your business. And that's the absolute heart of the product that we've created, Cash Flow Story. Cash Flow Story, the power of 1, is the code of your company. If you don't know your code, you're making decisions that might be detrimental. Because again, if you go back to the 4-chapter example, Chapter 1, profit, is equally important to Chapter 2, working capital. If you don't manage Chapter 2 with respect, Chapter 2 is stealing from Chapter 1.
That's a really good way to look at it, Alan. That's a great comment. It's an observation.
Dom, cash is the result of growth. People need money to grow.
Yeah.
People also need money to fund management. Your management team have got 7 levers. If they are moving the levers in the wrong direction, your cash flow is negative to fund inefficiency. And as a business owner, what you need to say, how do I run my business where I'm growing efficiently? You've got to run in color code green. Every time your 7 power of 1 levers move in the right direction, you make cash. You move it in the wrong direction, cash is going out of your business. It's got nothing to do with growth.
Just really quickly, you mentioned the color green. For those of you listening who aren't familiar with the system that myself and Alan talk about, is when we build a strategic plan, we simply code things that are in the green are good, things that are in the yellow we have to watch, and things that are in the red color, highlight in that box, that means all hands on deck, we need to look at it. And when we share that with that leadership team, whether it's our brother who owns the company with us, or our foreman and our purchaser and estimator, everybody knows red is flashing every meeting. But we start to work towards it, and we can change that into a yellow, and we can change it into a green.
So Dom, I'm going to mention something today I had no intention of talking about.
Do it.
But this is in my, if your listeners were on a 5-hour presentation of mine, I would cover this. But 50% plus of companies I see are profitable and they got very tight cash flow, and they physically don't understand why.
Right.
So the biggest warning sign to me is, again, I'm going to ask a question to your users. If they don't have this answer, they got a blind spot. Grow your business by $1. What's the cash flow impact? And everyone says to me, if I sell $1 more, I make another 30 cents gross margin, for example. I buy the product for 30 cents. I sell it, for 70 cents. I sell it for $1. I make 30 cents margin. That's what I'm going to make. But what people don't realize, in order to finance growth, you need Chapter 2. You need to finance your collections. You need to finance your inventory, and you need to finance how you pay suppliers if you don't have good terms. So every dollar you sell, how much money do you make in Chapter 1? How much do you borrow in Chapter 2 to produce that revenue?
Yeah.
And 50% of your users are guaranteeing are borrowing more in chapter 2 than they make in chapter 1. As they grow their business, they're profitable, but chapter 2 is stealing more than chapter 1 makes.
Yep.
And therefore, imagine if you ran your business with a focus on those 7 levers. Imagine how you could improve your performance. And that's why revenue is vanity, profit is sanity, cash is king.
Cash is
Cash is the result of profitability management and working capital excellence.
So we've got about 10 minutes left because you have a board meeting that you have to get to. I snuck this interview in with you and your administrator. I promised I'd keep you on time. So have we talked about profit and cash? Are we ready to go to valuation now?
Yes, so let's go to valuation.
Yeah.
So valuation relates exactly to the power of 1. So let's assume, I'm making up the numbers. Let's assume a company's making $1 million profit, and the carpentry type industry they're in sells at about a 4 times multiple. So the company says, wow, my company's worth $4 million. That's excellent. But I want at least 10 million valuation for my company. How do I get there? And this is the brilliance of the power of 1. So the first thing the power of 1 does, it improves cash flow. So therefore, it's putting more money in your bank. So when you sell the business, you're going to have more cash in the bank. Because when you sell a company, you don't sell your bank account. That's your money. Then the power of 1 improves profit, because there are 4 profit levers in the power of 1. And by improving profit, you're getting a multiplier uplift in your valuation. So in other words, if your company, through the power of 1, improves their profit by $100,000, and your multiple is 4 times, by improving 100,000 through power of 1, I've got a 400,000 valuation uplift.
Yep.
So the power of 1 gives you a multiplier uplift in valuation.
You know, a lot of, for most of the people listening, and it's fair, I mean, you and I have sold a couple of businesses, so we've been through this. It sounds like you've done a few more than me if you're on that many boards. But most of our listeners, I would venture, have not sold a business before. They've built a business, maybe they bought a business. But this concept of valuation perhaps is foreign to them, this multiple thing. Let me take a stab at it, and I'm going to have you fix me if that's okay. So if I've got a business that's doing $1 million in revenue, so just top line sales $1 million, that means I might be taking out, let's just say $100,000 in quote unquote profit at the end. And you and I both get the conversations where somebody says, it says $1 million on paper or 100,000 on paper, but I don't take home $100,000. Let's leave that aside for a second. When a buyer comes in to buy the business, if they're going to pay me 4 times earnings, 4 times multiple, my $1 million business that kicks off 100 grand in profit is worth 400,000 because they're paying me 4 times earnings. You and I are saying if we could find a way to increase the earnings to 500 grand and increase the valuation you get to 7 times instead of 4 times, then that's a massive increase in what I walk away with. And what I like to say here to my guests and listeners is that means you can drive a nicer truck, pulling a better boat, going to a more beautiful cottage on a prettier lake. And that's what we all want ultimately.
Exactly. So what the whole scaling up process does, I'm improving the multiplier uplift in your value. But what the scaling up process, the scaling up's got 4 decisions: people, strategy, execution, and I'm talking about decision 4, cash.
Yeah.
But if you implement people, strategy, and execution, you're going to impact the actual multiple. Because if you can demonstrate that your company is different to the industry, you're not going to get a 4 times multiple, you might get a 6. So in every board that I sit on, one of my first rules are, we're going to implement Rockefeller habits, scaling up, and I want to get double industry benchmark. That is my rule. Yeah.
Double industry benchmark.
Yeah, I want to get double the industry.
Love it. So that means if the industry benchmark is 4, your job on that board is to show that company how to get 8.
Now, if the company says this industry makes 30% margin and 8% profit, I'm saying, guys, we're going to end up with 16 when I'm finished with you.
Well,
and we're going to gamify your company that a buyer will come in and say, I can see why you got double industry. You run in a completely professional way that looks like a game. It looks like a war room when I walk into your company. Therefore, the numbers you are achieving are not luck. They are actual you can replicate those numbers period after period.
Predictable.
We are color code green as a business.
Yeah.
So I'm saying the power of one will uplift your business and give you that multiplier. But you've got to make it part of your quarterly meetings.
Well, yeah, and more regularly, a part of the regular meetings that you're having with your team. It's got to be part of the language. Hey, we're in about the last 5 minutes before you have to take off. You mentioned the software. What? I'm not familiar with that.
Okay, so Dom, this is a non-selling event. So let's make it quite clear. Your users can go to Cashflow Story website, so www.cashflowstory.com. The software produces the full 4-chapter review, the power of one, and it will give you a 22-page, and I would use it quarterly, a 22-page summary of your company that everyone in your business understands. Then, through the power of one, you can start to develop quarterly strategies to uplift the performance. So if any of your users buy the software, it's $895 per annum, and they're not happy, we will give them a full refund. There's no obligation if they don't get a benefit. Plus, we've got people in the company who will even review their first time they enter their data. They will do a review of their business with them as part of the software. Cool. To make sure that they understand their business properly.
You know, the beauty of this, I like the way you talked about gamifying it, because the beauty of this is that once it becomes, you just know what to do when the numbers move. And so then you've got a software that spits out directions, interpretation.
And that's why I said to you, Dom, finance is not the domain of the accountant. I'm an accountant, but there are 7 levers. Price and volume are your salespeople. Cost of goods are operational people. Collections or overheads is everyone. Collections, receivables are the finance people and the sales people. Inventory is operations. So finance, marketing, operations equals cash. Everyone in your business needs to become a storyteller. Repeat, repeat, repeat. Do this over and over again, and it will be part of your thinking. I can guarantee you every non-financial person on this call with enough repetition will understand this. On our website as well, I've made training videos. Go and listen to my training videos. It costs nothing to download. Repeat, 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 play it over and over again. You have to know what I'm saying today.
Well, thank you. This has been great. We're at 38 minutes. I promised 40, so we've got 2 minutes. I want to remind people of another way that they can learn more about you and see your work, and that's in the book. And everybody here already knows that I'm a big fan, but Scaling Up, you're a co-author with Vern Harnish on this book, which is version 2 of the Rockefeller Habits. There's a couple of different strategic planning systems out there in the English-speaking world anyways. I know there's a very strong one in Portuguese. That's another one altogether. But in English, there's 2 different strategic planning systems. There's EOS and there's Scaling Up. I've been a fan of Scaling Up, and I've been using it not only in my own companies, but for all the clients I work with. And the people that listen here and watch the podcast and read they see little bits. I like the way you called it gamifying, though. I think that's really cool.
And that's right. Think of your company as if you watch a sporting event, you got to see a score. You watch basketball with no score, it's not interesting. Every business I work with, everyone knows the score. Yeah. Because if you understand the score, you will see how you're impacting that business.
A little bit at a time.
Make it simple.
I'll use one more sports analogy, Alan, is that guys like you and I, our job is to show people not how to hit home runs every day, but hit singles every week.
Exactly.
Just hit a single, hit another single, hit another single, and then you get to the end result.
As Vern says, we on 13-week sprints. You do daily huddles, you have a daily discussion, a weekly meeting, a monthly summary, and then what's happened in the quarter. And then you set the next 13 weeks. It's very difficult when you're running a business and you're 1 week before the end of the quarter and you're absolutely out of sync.
Yeah.
You've got to do it daily. What's going on? How we track it.
So here's what I'm going to do from this interview today. As you know, this is a podcast. It's also being captured as a video. Those of you listening, I'll put links to the websites that Alan mentioned in the show notes. That means you can either go to the website that Alan mentioned, or you can come to our website. You can look at the blog post that we'll create from this, and it'll have hot links that take you automatically to Alan, what he's talked about. We'll put the book link in there if somebody wants to get it on Amazon or go into their local store and buy it. And also the finance and forecast meeting script that I think dovetails really nicely with what you're talking about here. Because a lot of our users are still doing this on their own. They don't have people like you and I across the table. And so they want to see these tools and try them out themselves. So that's my commitment from this. Alan, so good having you on the show. Unbelievable that you thank you for taking the time and joining us. I think it's been great.
And if you implement the 4 chapters, you'll eliminate chapter 11.
Have you been waiting the whole show to say that one line?
No, I'm thinking I've got a large American audience. The Aussies and other parts of the world might not get that, but I do a lot of work in the States.
That's pretty good, actually. That's a good one. All right, Alan, thank you so much for joining us here. We appreciate having you. Talk to you soon.
Thank you.